So if everyone can see my screen, the presentation today will be why now is the best time to be the captain. Be the captain is kind of our ethos here. We want everyone to become a professional pilot. And so we're very excited for everyone that gets to join us. So this is Wayman Aviation Academy we're going to be presenting about today. A few of our partners are on the right-hand side, Miami-Dade College, Embry-Riddle, Liberty University. I'll be speaking about our airline partners later on as well. So today's agenda, right? What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Wayman Aviation, get to know who we are, why you should even be listening to what we're saying today. We're going to talk about the aviation outlook. There's no surprise, aviation has changed dramatically in the last 2 months. Let's talk about what that means for you, our aspiring pilots. COVID-19, right? What is the school doing about COVID-19? And what opportunities may come about because of it? How we can help you get there, of course. In the end, we are a flight school. I'd love each of you to join us. There'll be plenty of information here that you can use with any flight school here in the US or worldwide. But ultimately, we are a flight school. So at the end of this, I'll let you know about our pricing, our structure, what it takes to join Wayman Aviation Academy here in Miami. And lastly, how to start, how to actually sign up, talk to our admissions team, and start your path on being a commercial pilot. So first, a little bit about the school. We've been here 33 years, a tradition of excellence. And that's no joke. We've got thousands of pilots flying around the world right now. A few of them pictured there. Our new facility in the bottom left corner and our large room, which you saw on the airport tour just a moment ago. A few badges of honor at the bottom. We are asset accredited, which is a big deal here in the United States. We are one of probably only a handful of flight schools in the country that have been accredited, not just certified by the FAA and so on, but actually accredited by the Department of Education. That was a lot of work. We are authorized by Department of Homeland Security to give visas, student visas, M1 visas, which we'll talk about. We are certified by the Federal Aviation Administration. That's the equivalent of the Civil Aviation Authority for those of you that are international. We are 141 certified, which means that they come and inspect our syllabus, our aircraft, and the way that we operate as a flight school. And on top of that, we're also 145 certified, which means that they come in and inspect our maintenance department and the way that we take care of our airplanes. We're very proud of our maintenance. I'm only going to spend a little bit of time talking about it today, but we have a beautiful 12,000 square foot hangar where we do all of our own maintenance, and it's why we're able to fly so much every day. The yellow badge in the bottom there is the AOPA Flight Training Experience Award. We have repeatedly been recognized by the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association as one of the best flight schools in the country. Always very proud to wear that badge and to be an AOPA member. And lastly, I think this is very important for those of you that are interested in being professional pilots, is that we are endorsed by ALPA, the Airline Pilots Association in Brazil, in China, right? And our president, Captain Tony Shen, is a board member of the Airline Pilots Association, Chinese Airline Pilots Association as well. So very happy to have all these accolades and people in the industry saying, yes, you're doing it right. Aviation changes lives. That's our mission. Aviation changes lives. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how aviation changed my life. I am that little kid in the front in the little shorts, right? And I still hate overalls. But the history of Wayman Aviation is that of a family, right? So the Wayman family, Mr. Wayman himself learned to fly in 1970. 1970, didn't know anything about aviation. But by chance, he helped move a tractor up into the missions in Peru, the Amazon, which inspired him to learn to fly and caused him to become a bush pilot. Right? He flew as a bush pilot there for over 15 years before coming to the US, where we opened up our first location at Opa-locka Airport, which I'll talk about in a bit. Opa-locka Airport, Miami Executive Airport. in 1992. And in 2015, the North Perry Airport, which is now our headquarters, housing about 2/3 of the fleet up here, as well as our maintenance facilities, admissions, and that good stuff. We have 2 bases now, 42 airplanes, and literally thousands of pilots flying in every corner of the world. So aviation not only changed Mr. Wayman's life, changed my life, and it's changed the lives of thousands of pilots that have walked through these doors. Which brings me to me, right? Why are you listening to me? Well, I am Wayman Eddy, part of the Wayman family, and yes, it is a first name, although people get it confused all the time. I've been flying since I was young, washing airplanes, working at the pilot shop. I am a licensed pilot, seaplane pilot as well, which is lots of fun. In the top right there, I'm flying an Extra 300 aerobatic aircraft. And below that, you see my wife and my 2 boys, the next generation of Wayman pilots. So I come to you with those 33 years that the flight school's been open. I've been here. So we've seen quite a bit in those 33 years of experience, and I hope to share that with you here over about the next 30 to 40 minutes is what I expect this conversation, this presentation to take. And then, of course, we'll be open for questions and answers after that. So this is what we all stare at, right? Every day, whenever you hear those airplanes passing overhead, you very likely look up and want to try to identify what airplane that is flying overhead. And that's because you very likely have a strong passion for aviation. Aviation is a passion career. You can't force someone to be a pilot. They have to want it, right? I have this conversation quite a bit. You really have to want to put in the hours to get up early and do those flights, the smell of jet fuel in the morning, like they say. I really want to have a passion for aviation. And so we're looking for travelers. We're looking for people that are interested in being on the go, in wearing the stripes, traveling around the world, seeing what aviation's like around the world. Here we have one of our graduates, James. James did 0 to commercial with us and was flying passengers and cargo. Every time he goes somewhere new, he sends us a photo. So there he is in front of London, Paris. I believe now he might have recently moved into a 767. Got to reach out to him. But I want to share a quick poll with you that are out there, right? I prepared a poll. This is a first for me. I'm going to launch this poll that says, what kind of course are you interested in, right? Are you interested in professional pilot, private pilot, instrument rating, commercial single, commercial multi, flight instructor, or other? Now, our main program is the professional pilot program, but if you're interested in just one of the smaller courses like private, instrument, commercial, click those and let us know. So that poll is running now, and feel free to click on those at any time. That's for those of you in the Zoom. Everyone seeing us on Facebook Live, you can just let us know in the comments. Let us know what kind of course you're interested in, if you're interested in professional or otherwise. But let's go back to the presentation. This is it, right? Traveler is waiting to be in the front seat. It's for somebody who just simply cannot be in a cubicle, has to get out and see the world. And so by the end of your training with us and then your type ratings, you'll know what all those switches do. The fuel systems, the autopilots, the cabin systems. It's really interesting, and there's no shortage for a curious person to get in there about what they're interested in. Again, for those of you that are here, we've got Erkan taking questions in the chat, and we've got Guillen taking questions on Facebook Live. Feel free to chime in if you need to know something or are just curious about what you're seeing. So nothing gets better than this view, right? We all want to be a pilot traveling the world. Salaries doesn't hurt, right? It's a great way to make a living. It's a great way to make a living. Here what we have from left to right is the way that salaries have increased. From the blue lines are regional and the green lines are major airline captains. In 2008, about 12 years ago, it was not a great income, right? It was for first year regional pilots, it was around 20, 24,000. For airline pilots, you were starting in the 80s. Now, come 2014, the pilot shortage caused salaries to increase dramatically, right? 190% increase in salaries is what we've seen. In 2017, just a few short years ago, our regional pilots were entering the market at $60,000 a year salaries, US, for those that are curious. And our major airline captains were easily making six figures. Those are your Delta, United, JetBlue captains were doing very well for themselves. Now these fluctuate country to country, but by and large, it's a good income anywhere around the world once you get into the major airlines. And then of course there's the benefits and the perks, right? These pictures come to us from former students. That's some islands in Bali that one of our former students went to. And the picture below that is Lucas, our friend Lucas, I don't know if he's watching, with his mother on his first flight in LATAM. So he was able to take his mother up for a flight in LATAM. Your average professional pilot, once they're in the career working on a steady job in an airline, works about 12 to 15 days a month, right? That leaves a lot of other time for projects, to continue your maybe university education, spend time with the family. It's a really interesting lifestyle. But there's a problem. In fact, there is a crisis, right? Before COVID-19 even happened, there was a pilot shortage. The world doesn't have enough pilots to fill the seats that were happening from retirements. Airlines were cutting routes due to the pilot shortage. Pilot salaries have been continuously increasing just to try to get more people into it. And when it comes down to it, the world was not producing enough pilots. And that's only been exacerbated. It's only been increased due to the COVID-19 coronavirus. So let's talk a little bit about that. What is the future of the aviation industry with COVID-19? So we've heard many things. I'm sure the news is on 24/7 in most people's homes about what is going on in the world. Let me see if I can get a pen to mark this up. Can I? Oops, let me come back to that. Annotate. Okay, great. So we are now here, May 2020. We're at the bottom of that that dip, as you know. Not many flights going on, a lot of furloughs and things like that happening. So many people have talked about these different kind of recovery methods, right? So the V-shaped recovery is what would happen if we just bounced right back. You know, everything goes back to normal. And this would have us going back to 100% by the end of the year. And we all know that's pretty unlikely. It's unlikely that we're going to have a V-shaped recovery that's going to take us right back to 100% airline recovery by the end of the year. Some of this is going to be around for a while. The other extreme is the L-shaped recovery, where it comes down and keeps going down, or stays pretty flat. That we've also found is quite unlikely. I am a member of the Greater Miami Aviation Association, a board member actually. And as you can imagine, Miami is a huge nexus, a huge hub for international air travel. So we were on a call, the board members, with the Vice President, American Airlines for Latin America, kind of telling us what he sees. And imagine he's got access to massive amounts of information. So he's saying we're probably going to see what this U-shaped recovery looks like here, U-shaped recovery. So what that means is, yes, we're going to be pretty down and about through the summer. And then you're going to start seeing that uptick as business, commercial traffic starts coming back up. So by the end of this year, we'll be at about 75% of what traffic and airline revenues were like before this. You know, just 2-3 short months ago, January, February of this year, we're going to go back to about 75% is the thinking by the end of this year. So that's kind of what this year looks like. What does that mean for our students? Well, this, let me get rid of annotate here. Well, this really has to be taken in the context of our pilot shortage, right? Our pilot shortage was the big issue before all this happened and continues to be the big issue. So because of the current status in the airlines, retirements have actually accelerated. Now remember, the underlying cause of the pilot shortage wasn't growth. Yes, there's a lot of growth happening in India. I know we've got somebody from India and in China, but the underlying growth, at least in the US, the issue was retirements, right? So 4,000 pilots were retiring annually in the US. And just this month, well, actually now last month, um, over 700 pilots from American Airlines took early retirement. Early retirement. So that actually accelerated the need for pilots to replace those retiring pilots, right? And that's just one airline. The same thing is happening United, Delta, JetBlue, around the world, and Lufthansa, and many others. We're seeing an acceleration in those older airline pilots. So airlines are losing pilots now, and a lot of people are going to exit the market. People that had the ratings but weren't passionate with aviation, maybe they had other businesses and they took that early retirement or pursued other industries. You're going to see a lot of that this year. And the pilot shortage, of course, is not just in the US, it's worldwide. Boeing estimates that we're going to need 637,000 pilots worldwide over the next 20 years. Only a quarter of that is in the US. The rest is, 24% is in US and South America. 62% of it is in Asia. That's from the Middle East, India, and China. That's, of course, as our middle class is growing and they're more able to fly. Now, this might be dampened a little bit. It might be stretched out for perhaps 2 or 3 years, but you're going to see that access to aviation still be strong as people need to move around. Not to mention, of course, cargo and corporate is going incredibly strong. Even though commercial travel, you and me going on a vacation to Bali or Las Vegas, even though that's on hold right now, cargo is going extremely strong. I get emails every day from former students who are doing what are called a PRIA request, Prior Records Information Act from those airlines saying, that's Atlas Airlines who flies for Amazon. Amazon is incredibly busy. Cargo is incredibly busy right now. They're going very strong. And those students also that want to go into corporate, they're flying Gulfstreams and Learjets and Citations. They haven't stopped flying either because those first class passengers have now decided to charter. And they're still moving around. They're still getting to where they need to be. So very interesting. I think the news and most people are fixated on the large airlines, your Cathay Pacifics, your Uniteds and Deltas, but there's a lot of aviation outside of the majors, a lot of cargo, a lot of charter happening, and even stronger now. All right. So simply put, the world does not produce enough pilots. The US alone certifies, let's see, if we took the simple numbers divided by 20 years, the world needs something along the lines of 30,000 pilots a year. And the world produces about 14,000, half as many pilots as we need to meet the demand that we had in January. So let's say that the demand is dampened because of coronavirus and COVID-19, you're going to see, for the most part, a temporary reduction in that need of about 30 to 40%. But even then, we still don't produce enough pilots to fill the demand. Which brings me to this really interesting graph from Mr. Kit Darby. Kit Darby is an aviation consultant. I've got to give dues. When I saw this chart, it really visualized what I've been talking about and what I'm trying to explain to everyone here. So let me walk you through this chart about why now is the best time to be the captain. So we are here, 2020, in May, right? So we are right at the beginning of the stimulus effect of flight training. And this chart represents the US, but we don't have the worldwide data, but you can extrapolate this quite a bit, but this is US data. So the stimulus effect is kind of softening the blow for pilots that right now are being furloughed. And there's pilot furloughs happening right now. We can't deny it, we've got to acknowledge it. So this is going to be the cushion for those pilot furloughs. And those pilot furloughs are going to last through the year, through this year into next year. And those pilot retirements is this green area right here. This green area is retirement replacement pilots, right? Whether or not COVID-19 is here, pilots will continue to hit the age of 65 or the early retirement age of 62 and be leaving the market. And those seats have to be filled by furloughed pilots or new pilots. So what we have here is this purple line shows us the moment where it crosses over from existing pilots covering the replacement to the need for new pilots to cover those seats. And that's about 2 years from now. Let's say April 2022, right? So that's about a year and a half to 2 years from now. Retirement, replacement jobs, and growth pilots. Growth pilots. Now that's the industry growing and demanding more pilots. So what takes 2 years? Anybody want to take a guess? Those of you that are in the chat? I'll tell you what takes 2 years. Flight training, right? Your average flight training program is about a year, we say 10 months to 12 months, up to 18 months. So if you were to start today, right? If you were to start today on our next class is starting May 18th, here in about 2 weeks, you would be done with your training about May, June of next year at 250 hours. And then most of you would go on to work as flight instructors, charter, those kind of things, building your time to reach 1,000, 1,500 hours, which is when most airlines look at you very seriously. So you, if you start right now, will be right where you need to be to get into this next wave of hiring, right? So that's why now is the best time to start, because right now there's been a pause on hiring. So you get yourself ready, and you're going to see that when you come out of your training and have your time, that's when the airlines are going to want to hire you. That's when they're going to be looking around for that next group of pilots coming in. A wonderful chart. I'm really glad that Kit Darby put this together. So it really visualizes what we've been talking about internally here at the flight school, right? Now, keep in mind, what this pushes out is those people that didn't have the passion, right? Some people get into it because they think it's a quick way to make a buck. It's not. It takes a lot of work to become a pilot. You've got to be passionate and really want to be in there. So you're going to have all those people that were just putting in hours for the paycheck out of the way. The truck drivers, we're going to get them out of the way. And we're going to have aviators, people that really want to fly, that dedicate themselves to the craft and the skill. They're going to be our pilots going forward. Thank you for the questions going on right now in the chat and in Facebook Live. We've got Guillen and Erkan answering those questions. Thank you, Guillen and Erkan. So that is why it's the best time to start your career. So how can we help you do that? Well, first of all, we've got to keep it safe, right? COVID-19 is on everyone's mind, whether it's yours or your parents. Maybe you were ready to come join us and you've decided to put the hold on. I don't know if it's safe. Should I be going to flight school right now, traveling to another country, flying in small aircraft? So what has the school done? I've got to admit, the school has been right on the forefront of what it takes to be a safe training environment for all of our students. You know, right now we've got about 100, 150 students flying with us. And, you know, I feel like everyone's uncle, right? We want to make sure that everyone's safe, has a roof over their head, is well taken care of. So we've come up with the COVID-19 guidelines, which can be found on our website. If you go to wayman.net, right at the top, there's a blue banner that says, see our COVID-19 guidelines. And there's also a letter there for parents, if you want to show that to mom, dad, your sponsor, in English and in Spanish. That's directly from our president, Captain Shen. So what is our clean, clear, and safe protocol? Well, as we all know with COVID-19, cleanliness is the standard, right? A lot of hand washing. We're sanitizing the aircraft before and after every flight with isopropyl alcohol every morning and afternoon. The classrooms themselves are getting deep cleanings, and the base is getting cleaned every single day with deep cleanings on the weekends. We're staying clear of each other, social distancing. I know some of you probably haven't left your apartments, your houses in a little while. Well, let me tell you, there's nothing like social distancing from 2,000 feet. You know, flying over the beach is a beautiful way to social distance. I was able to get out there on Sunday and fly. So how are we social distancing in the flight school? Well, one, we're limiting the people in the building, right? We have this big, beautiful 12,000 foot building that I gave everyone a tour of at the beginning of our presentation. It's empty right now. You know, it's bittersweet. We have this big, beautiful building that we just opened up in May of this year, May of last year, 1 year anniversary right now. Oh, wow. Happy birthday to our building B. It was in May of last year. So it's a little bittersweet because we have this beautiful facility, but for the most part, it's empty. And we want it that way. We're trying to limit the number of people in the building at all times. Right now, it's closed to the public. I love giving tours. I love welcoming school children for career days and showing people what it's like to become a pilot. But right now, our doors are closed to the public. If you're in the Miami area, you're welcome to schedule a tour with admissions. Erkan's in the chat right now if you want to schedule a tour. But we're limiting the people inside the building. All of our pilots are wearing gloves and masks. As you can see in the photo there, that's our Vice President of Flight Operations, Wayman Alfredo. He's a Wayman, he's my brother. 8,000-hour pilot, tons of experience, has done transatlantic crossings and flown just about everything you can think of. And he's our Chief of Flight Operations. And so we're all wearing masks and gloves. We provide them for our students, as well as have them for sale in our pilot shop. And we're staggering flights. What that means is we don't have 20 airplanes taking off at 9 a.m. We have a few taking off at 9, a few taking off at 9:30, a few taking off at 10 a.m., 10:30. That way there's never a large grouping of people at dispatch, no large clusters. And that's been very successful for social distancing. And lastly, we're following safe steps for our students. Healthcare is number one, right? So all of our students are required to have healthcare, which covers any and all COVID treatments and diagnosis. For any incoming student, we're running a special where your enrollment includes 1 year, 365 days of healthcare included, paid for by the school, free of charge. So that should be welcoming for your parents and sponsors to know that while you're here in the US, there will be coverage. Quarantine. So those of you that are traveling internationally to come join us, we have a quarantine house. So we have housing, about 22 apartments in the immediate area. They're all within biking distance, about 2 to 3 miles, which is 5 kilometers. So most people walk or bike or take public transportation to the school. However, we've separated a house, a house probably about 3 blocks away from us, and that's our quarantine house. So if you come to join us, your first stop will be in our quarantine house. It's fully furnished, beds, kitchens, TVs, great Wi-Fi, and a pool to enjoy here in South Florida. And it's a quarantine house, so you should stay there for 14 days. That's the CDC, World Health Organization recommendations. If that changes in the future, we'll modify it. But we're very lucky to be able to offer a quarantine house free of charge for any of our international students that are flying in, whether they're going to be staying in our housing or staying, with friends or family in the Miami area. We have this quarantine house. And the last thing we're doing is online orals, ground schools, and tutoring, right? So this is really interesting. All of our ground schools have gone online. And in fact, we have a special running, which I'll talk about at the end of the presentation, where you can save $600. If you stick with us until the end of the presentation, I'll show you how to save $600 on ground school. So all of our ground schools have gone online, which means that they're live with an instructor with an online component, and you get full credit for it when you arrive, which means you do ground school from home right now, whether you're sitting in Ireland or Turkey or India, you get that ground school done, and when you come, it's already done. So you will go right into flight training. And beacons means tutors. So we have a wonderful program of student leaders, and they offer free tutoring, right? So they're also doing it through Zoom and Skype and FaceTime. You just sign up and they give you a call at a designated time. And it's, that reviewing for your tests, your questions, it's all done online. Beautiful program. So that is what the school is doing to keep operations safe in the time of COVID-19. If you have any questions about our safety protocols, feel free to put them in the chat or in the comments on Facebook Live, and our team will respond to you as soon as possible. Or I'll be happy to take questions and respond to them at the end of the presentation. So that's the airline industry. That's what's going on out there, and that's what we're doing about it. But how do you get from being a flight school student to joining the airlines? You need somebody. You need a connection, right? You need to know somebody in the airlines. Aviation is the smallest industry, even though it's literally worldwide. It's a very small industry. Everyone knows everyone else. And so you need somebody, you need that in, right? Well, guess what? You know somebody, you know me, right? So as of today, you all know Wayman Eddy at Wayman Aviation, and be happy to put you in touch with our alumni that are flying around the world, including our airline partners. Now you got that connection. Our pilots are flying at countless number of airlines around the world, everything from Korean Airlines to Korean Air to Junyao to I've got people flying in Africa, Cathay Pacific, many here in the US at JetBlue and Spirit, and flying cargo for Atlas if that's your dream. Our partners are probably one of the best things about the school here. We've worked really hard to have as many airline partners as we have today. So formally, we have 6 airline partners. In the US, Republic Airline, Silver Airways, ExpressJet, and SkyWest. Internationally, we train for Junyao Airlines in China and Miat, Mongolian International Airlines. But Republic, SkyWest, and ExpressJet, you might think, well, I've never really heard of them. These are the regional airlines, usually the first airline job that you get moving into the airlines. But you might know these airlines under their other names: Delta, United, and American Airlines. So Republic, SkyWest, and ExpressJet fly under the banners of American Airlines, United, and Delta. Usually when you spent a few years with, let's say, ExpressJet, which is our most recent partner, let's say you spend 2 to 5 years with ExpressJet, you get that upgrade to captain, you flow into United Airways, which is wonderful. Sometimes there's an interview, sometimes they just flow you right in depending on the demand. So that's for our US domestic students. And of course, we have a huge alumni network. I recommend that each and every one of you join our Facebook group called Wayman Pilots. And that is a combination of our alumni, our current students, and our future students, where you can talk and say, hey, does anybody work at LATAM in Chile? And yeah, very likely someone will raise their hand and be like, oh yeah, I can get you in touch with the chief pilot down there. It's a great group, and I love seeing our alumni and our students exchanging information on the Facebook group. So how do you go from a dream to a career, right? You're thinking right now, you're flying simulators at home, Microsoft X-Plane, and you're thinking, man, I really want to get into the airlines. So in the US, there's lots of small schools. You know, they're pretty good. Here at North Perry Airport, there's 6 flight schools at North Perry Airport alone, where we're just right next to Miami. But those small schools can only take you so far. You've got to get together with an academy. If you're international, it has to be an academy that has M1 visa authorization. M1 visa authorization means that not only are we cleared by the FAA as a flight school, but we're cleared by the US government to say, hey, come on in, be a M1 visa student in the US. And so those are the serious schools, right? Which is where we get to be. So right there, Wayman Aviation connects flight training to the airlines. And right here, you've got Michael on the right-hand side. Right now, he's flying for Spirit Airlines, great guy. And you've got Guillen on the left. He's actually answering your questions in Facebook, if anyone's got questions. And we're very lucky to call Florida home, right? It's the home of the mouse, Mickey Mouse, just north of us in Orlando, home of the Miami Beach, Miami Heat, Miami Dolphins. Actually, Miami Dolphins Stadium is probably about 10 minutes drive south of us, right? And we have 2 bases at Miami Opa-locka Executive Airport. That's our historic base. That's where we've been for the last 33 years. And that base is mostly dedicated to our local students. So if you're in the Miami area and you want to learn how to fly, you'll most likely be flying out of Opa-locka. It's just more flexible, and it's more tailored to your part-time student that's flying evenings and weekends. That's also where our Miami-Dade College students fly, and our Liberty University students. Our headquarters is Hollywood North Perry Airport, which is the second star above. Let me get my pen out. Can I get my pen out? This one over here is North Perry. That's our headquarters, where almost all of our international students fly out of. That's because this is where we have our housing, and it's a very friendly airport for flight training. All right. So I'm sure many of you are curious, what's the life of a student pilot like? What is it actually like to be here learning how to fly? Well, I've got to tell you, our students love it, right? There's a term in aviation called the pilot in command, right? The pilot in command is just that, the person in charge. So when you're at the airlines, you're the person in charge of that Airbus and the 200 lives on board. When you're in our Cessnas, you're in charge of yourself and the aircraft, making all the decisions, where you're going, do you have enough fuel, is it a safe time to fly, or maybe I shouldn't fly today because of the weather. So students love it because they come here to the US and they're responsible for themselves. Yes, we provide a syllabus. Yes, some of them are taking care of our housing, but we're not there to do your laundry. We're not there to tell you when and where to be in class or to study. That's on you, right? You've got to be the pilot in control of your training. So they really love flying with us. Here we have some of our students around Craig Russell. He's our team leader for instrument training. Below, we've got one of our aircraft flying right over the beach. And in the top right is a picture of some of our housing that's just a short bike ride away, Harbor Cove. And many of you that are visiting us from around the world are going to need housing. And we know that. And so about 8 years ago, we started going out there and making agreements and finding housing for our students. And so we've found about 22 houses and apartments in the immediate area. Actually, this one in the top right with the table there, that's actually our quarantine apartment. So that, if you're coming internationally, that'll probably be your first stop for the first 2 weeks you're with us. And that one has a nice pool in the background, just outside that window, actually. So this is it, right? This is why you're coming to learn in Miami. This is literally a picture of someone's first flight, right? The first flight, according to the syllabus, is you take off from North Perry or Opa-locka Airport, you fly eastbound towards the beach and turn south. And we fly south. You're in control this entire time. You're sitting in the left seat with an instructor on the right-hand side, and you fly down the beach as far down as South Beach, fly around Key Biscayne, which is a beautiful island just off of South Beach, and come back up the coast. Straight and level flights, landings and takeoffs, basic communications. This picture right here is lesson 1, right? And in that first flight, in that first lesson, you'll know if you love it or hate it, right? And those of you that are in the Miami area, you can contact admissions and schedule a discovery flight, which is just what it sounds like. You go up on the same lesson, up and down the coast, to decide if you like flying. It's inexpensive, $179, and the best money you'll ever spend. If you decide not to pursue flight training, it's a great way to spend a Saturday morning. So our students love this flight, and this becomes a regular part of your training, flying up and down the beach, the Everglades, seeing different parts around Florida. But I don't know if we have any sponsors or parents on the Zoom call. If you have a parent in the room with you or a sponsor, go ahead and call them over because this part's important for them. The students love the view, but the parents and sponsors love progress and reports, right? So we have a student affairs team and a standardization department whose task it is to keep track of your flight training. So many flight schools are very loose and relaxed, right? They just throw you the keys, go fly, we'll see you in 250 hours. That is not the way that we do things here at Wayman Aviation Academy. It is an academy, which means that it is a structured process, a structured syllabus where every flight has a mission and an expected outcome, right? That data is gathered into progress reports, which we can provide to parents, we can provide to sponsors, and generally just kind of let everyone know how you're doing. Are you ahead of schedule, behind schedule, on budget, off budget? You've got to authorize that sponsor to get this data, and we're happy to provide it for them. That's progress and reports. So what does it take? What does it take to be a commercial pilot? 3 steps. There's 3 stages to your flight training: private pilot, instrument rating, and commercial. And the requirements: you have to be 18 years of age and have completed a high school or equivalent education. Now, in the US, you can get your private pilot license at 17. But for our international students, we ask for 18 because in the US, you are an adult at the age of 18, which means you can legally sign your documents, your enrollment agreement, your lease if you're staying in housing with us. So that 18 years of age is something we stick to pretty strongly. And high school education is important as well because there's quite a bit of math that goes with flying. No one's going to ask you to do calculus. Most of it is, basic multiplication, addition, division, but you've got to be able to do it quickly and in your mind. So we're looking for at least a high school education. Very important that everyone read, write, and speak English at an ICAO level 4. ICAO is the International Civil Aviation Organization, and they've created a 1 to 6 scale for English. 1 is no hablo inglés, I don't speak English. 6 is a fluent English, like what you're hearing right now. But in fact, English is my second language. Spanish was my first language. And so we all start at the beginning. Level 4 is what's considered an advanced intermediate English. Not only can I speak it, but I can understand it, and I'm not translating that much in my mind. Now, everyone could use more practice in English. When you come here, all the ground schools are going to be in English. There's tutors that are available for English and for the general aviation curriculum. So if your English is a 3, we can get you to a 4, usually in that first month you're here, by working with an aviation English tutor. And of course, you've got to be in good health to pass an FAA Class 1 medical. Now, that's required of all pilots. And the reason we ask for students to pass that right away is because if you're interested in being a career pilot, you want to have that first class medical, which is what's required for the airlines. Now, if something comes up in that first physical examination, then at least you have time to deal with it, or before you've invested in your tuition, you can make other choices. For those of you that don't pass your medical for whatever reason, remember that for every job in the cockpit, there's 50 jobs in support, everything from airport operations, air traffic control, airline owners and managers. There's a lot of work in the aviation industry, but today we're going to focus on making pilots. That's our training timeline. As I mentioned, 3 steps to be a pilot. So your private pilot is the first box there, PPL. It's usually done in about 3 to 5 months. Your instrument rating goes a lot quicker because you already know how to fly, usually done in about 2 to 3 months. And your commercial pilot certificate is usually done in 3 to 4 months. Now, 10 to 12 is what we say the usual is for our program. We've had students do the whole program in 5.5 months, 6 months. We've had 2 people, one gentleman from Hong Kong, one gentleman from Peru, do the entire program in 6 months. But your average student does it in about 10 to 12 months. And if you're not as dedicated, not as focused, that can roll into a second year. But we really want everyone to finish in these 10 to 12 months because the M1 visa is for 1 year. It's a 1-year visa. All right, a little bit behind schedule, so I'm gonna try to pick up the pace here. You've got to work your plan your work, and work your plan. So the first step is to enroll, right? Request your I-20 and visa if you need it. If you're a U.S. citizen or resident, you can just give us a call and do the paperwork directly. Your private pilot license is where you're going to learn how to fly, how to control the aircraft, basics of navigation, weather, and of course, safety, safety, safety. Your instrument rating lets you fly at night and in bad weather, makes you a stronger pilot. And of course, your commercial single engine lets you fly for hire. And your multi-engine is where you get to fly bigger, heavier aircraft. And of course, think of any Boeing or Airbus, they're all twin engine airplanes or larger. So here's a big question. I know that there were some questions here in the chat about visas. We are authorized by the US government to issue I-20s. The I-20 is the invitation for you to come study with us as a flight school student. That results in an M1 visa. So you take this I-20, that's literally a picture of a student's I-20 there on the left, and you take that I-20 to the embassy. They're gonna ask you a few questions, ask for proof that you can afford the program, that your English is good, and the embassy will give you an M1 visa to enter the country. So the school has to manage your I-20 and visa while you're here with us, which is why we really need our students to finish in that 1 year. It is renewable, but only designed to be 1 year. It's for full-time students only. You cannot come and be a part-time international student. When you're here, the main purpose of your visit in the US is to be a flight school student. So we expect you to fly 3 to 5 times a week, be attending ground schools, be attending our meetings and doing regular progress monitoring. It is not a work permit. The M1 visa does not allow you to work. So you can't be doing Uber, you can't be working at the mall while you're here. You've got to be dedicated to your studies. However, for those that graduate from our program, we have F1 partners that allow you to work as a flight instructor after you get your commercial license. That's a conversation for a different webinar, but there is a work F1 option for those that graduate our professional pilot program. There's always a lot of questions about visas, so please feel free to put those in the Facebook comments or in the Zoom room. You know what, really quick before I move on, does everyone like what they're hearing? Give me a clap or a thumbs up if you hear me fine and you're following everything well. All right. Let's review. What did we talk about today? Actually, we're just at about 1 hour, so the timing is perfect. We talked about Wayman Aviation, who we are, why you should give a listen. The aviation outlook. As you all saw, there's great opportunity. If you're learning to fly now, there's great opportunity for hiring about 1 to 2 years out. You're going to be there when the wave breaks. COVID-19 and how we're handling it. Oh, and they all came out right there. COVID-19 and how we're handling it. How Wayman Aviation Academy can help you. And most importantly, how to start right now. So these are the 4 steps to get started, right? 1, you've got to apply, right? You've got to show up for life. Go to wayman.net, our website, go to wayman.net, and right at the top, there's a blue button that says apply now, right? It's simply a student questionnaire. Go ahead and fill it out. That will get you in touch with our admissions team. We've got a wonderful admissions team that speaks Spanish, English, Turkish, Arabic, Mandarin. We've got a great admissions team working for you. I see that Yashira joined us in Panama. If you want to contact her for Panama and IFADO, she's wonderful. Our international students, you've got to apply for an I-20 and an M1 visa. This is about a 30 to 45 day process. So if you're thinking about joining us in July, you really need to apply now, right? Even if you're thinking about joining us in August or September, now's the time to get started because no one wants to be rushing to the embassy and rushing to get flights, right? So if you're thinking about joining us later in the year or next year, go ahead and start talking to our admissions team. And if you're a domestic student, if you're already here in the Miami area, contact our admissions team, take a discovery flight, $179, go up and down the beach. You'll either love it or hate it, and we're happy to start your flight training, which is number 4, start flying. It's as simple as that. You got to start flying. This is the goal, right? The goal is to be in the cockpit at 40,000 feet. And if you've ever had a teacher tell you you'll never make a living looking out a window, now you can prove them wrong. All right?